Hello everyone, I'm Professor Geek. Welcome back to my channel. Today I want to talk about the Antarctic Press title Black Hops, and this is by artist Tim Limm and writer Mark Pelligrini. From what I understand, the concept originally initiated with Tim Limm, and yes, the concept is a small rabbit who serves as a special operative for the American military. Hence the title Black Hops instead of Black Ops. I'll be honest about this, I really had no interest in this title before I read it. I'd heard about it, of course. I'd been on some live streams with Tim and Mark. They're both wonderful guys. I know that they're both involved in some upcoming titles, which look to be great. I know they're talented storytellers. But the concept just didn't grip me. I thought, Black Hops, okay, it's got a cutesy title there. I thought maybe this was going to be some sort of allegorical story where all of the soldiers are rabbits or something like that. Couldn't be farther from the truth. I adored this comic. So I wanted to get into why without spoiling the issue, because I highly recommend you go pick this up. But through talking to Tim, I found out that they really did want to promote a very Captain America-like pure aspirational hero with this bunny. Of course, Marvel is not producing the real Captain America and giving us those stories at the moment. And it might sound weird, but you can find that character, the spirit of that character, in the Black Hops title, in this small bunny, who they've designated USAGI. Like Captain America, this bunny comes from the past. He was caught in the blast at Hiroshima, and the bomb, the radiation, gave him these abilities. He has longevity, which is why he's still alive, and all of these different powers you'll find out as you read the comic that enable him and suit him for these missions. He was found while they were scouring the aftermath of Hiroshima. He was found by an American soldier who took him in as a pet. Then they discovered the powers and whatnot. This is just the premise of it. So he's remained with the original soldier that found him, and then that man's son, granddaughter, and so forth stays with that family. And there's a quote in the end that I'm going to read you, just to really sell you on this idea of how pure and aspirational this story is. Something happens, and USAGI, the bunny, has a flashback to something that his father, as they call him, that first soldier who found him, told him when he was very old. He knew his time was near, and he was just talking to the bunny about life after his death, and he said, "The true soldier fights not because he hates what's in front of him, but because he loves what's behind him." Just in that short phrase, that is profound, and that is everything that's wrong with a lot of the so-called war heroes in today's literature and in today's media. I haven't covered the war hero yet in my Archetype videos, but the war hero protects boundaries. He's not about invading, he's not about assaulting, he's not about reacting and gaining revenge. The war hero is about protecting. So there's a resistance built into this type of character against the propaganda that's often perpetuated about the other side and how the other side is made the other, are dehumanized and whatnot. Whether we're talking about Islamic fundamental terrorists or alt-right Nazis, when your motives come purely from a place of hatred of the other side, then you're only a proponent of hate just as they are. It's a hard concept to grasp just in everybody's daily lives in terms of their own self-control and their own integrity, but certainly in terms of the characters that we see in fiction that inspire us. The concept of do what you do because you love what's behind you, as he says here. Do what you do because you are dedicated to protecting people, values, the boundaries that you believe should stay in place in terms of rights, life, and so on. So this story really understands that and places forth that value. What impressed me from the storytelling is the character development of this bunny. This bunny does not speak. There's no speech. We get thought bubbles to kind of hint at the reader what he's communicating to other animals or the general gist of how he's reacting. But this is something in both the writing and the art that I found so impressive, is that they really do invest the reader into this bunny's character. We're invested in his competence. We're invested in his empathy. They're just wonderful character moments throughout. I'll get to some here, but again, not spoiling the issue for you. The other thing that I found so impressive about this issue, and the story in general, the general concept, is how it draws on all of the powerful components of a fable without devolving into strict allegory. So remember I said I was scared at first that it was going to be some sort of tale about the rabbits are soldiers and maybe this other country is a different type of animal or something like that. That's allegory, and it can be done very well and has been done well in the past, but ultimately it's a very limiting genre of storytelling. Fables can serve as allegories to some degree, but a fable is a moral story, usually using animals to highlight human follies or human strengths, human weaknesses, and to bring forth some sort of moral. So I want to be clear that Black Hops, the comic book, is not a pure fable, because it's not just purely a moral tale trying to preach or anything. I'm not saying it's limited to that, but it draws on elements of the fable to really deepen and profound its own meaning. For example, there's a running theme with the animals in the book that do show up, because we do have USAGI, the bunny, and then he does face off with some enemy animals in North Korea on his mission. And there's a running theme here that we are created by the disasters in our past, by the traumas in our past. And I've talked a little bit about this, talking about different heroic archetypes previously, and how whether one is a hero or a villain depends on their reaction to trauma, to defeat, to the things that happen to us in life. We can be Batman and decide to go out and make sure that no one else has to suffer what we suffered, or we could be Two-Face and decide that we suffered a trauma, so there must not be any meaning in the world, and we'll just flip a coin to see who lives and dies. We can have positive or negative responses. And we see this shining through in the symbolism of what happens to all of the animals. So, for example, there is a breed of deer in the story, vampire deer. And I didn't look this up to see if it was a real thing, but one of the captions talk about this breed of deer, vampire deer, who evolved fangs rather than antlers for self-protection, and that they used to be docile creatures for the most part, but their time in captivity in North Korea has made them aggressive. So here you have their traumas of the past made them what they are today. They evolved fangs. They evolved the ability to fight off and protect themselves. That's a good thing. That's a positive thing. But their time in captivity, their experiences, their trauma, quote-unquote, in captivity, has made them aggressive. Now they are not about protecting anymore. They're about assaulting. We have a group of Siberian tigers, and the caption box tells us there that they used to be called Korean tigers, but they were so depopulated that that name doesn't really mean anything anymore, so they call them Siberian tigers, and they have been weaponized by the Korean military. So in the symbolism here, we have a loss of identity. They used to be Korean tigers, now they're Siberian tigers, and in the aftermath of that captivity and depopulation, they allowed themselves to be weaponized. And that's why we have the mindless brutes that they are, the mindless attacking beasts. Except for one. One had the positive experience of a trainer who paid him special attention and so forth, and that tiger appears capable of some higher cognitive function, some emotions. So in that we see the lesson of choosing what parts of your past to latch onto, because the tiger who did receive the kindly training could have just focused on the trauma. That same kind trainer was there with all of the other tigers as well, but only this one chose to dwell on that positive experience and allow that to shape who he is. So still a villain, still a soldier, one that attacks our USAGI, but there's something more to him, and we see that he has a different outcome. Once again, we have the same theme. You are a product of the things that have happened to you, but really you're a product of your reactions to the things that have happened to you. And then finally, to USAGI himself, the actual bunny, he is created by Hiroshima. He's created by a disaster, by a horrible experience of destruction. And from that explosion, he carries with him a fragment of the girl's bow that we assume owned him before the explosion or something like that. He carries this little fragment of her red bow with him everywhere. And that's an idea of keeping with you the things that were important from your past. Not allowing all of the missions that he goes through, not allowing all of the powers and abilities that he gains, not allowing any of that to make him forget who he was just as a regular bunny with that girl receiving her love. And that's an important lesson in general for human beings reading this story. We are going to face trauma, we're going to face horrible things in our life, but we can't let it embitter us to the point that we forget the goodness and the purity and anything that we might have started with that was important to us. Too many people become jaded past that, but that's a general principle of psychology and remaining a hopeful heart throughout life, is that you can't allow the traumas to embitter you to forget those things. This is classic hero work right here, classic heroic inspiration. We also first meet him in the book, at least in the current timeline, next to his father's grave. So again, the soldier that found him first and took him on, he was buried next to the bunny's favorite spot to lie down, so he loves to stay there and spend time with his father's grave, spending time with his memory there, remembering what was good in your past, continuing from the girl and her bow to his father, the soldier who loved him and trained him. He's also convinced to go on this mission because it's revealed that the North Koreans are going to send this bomb that will be damaging to civilians. And he remembers from his own experience with Hiroshima that civilians suffered, and that's a traumatic thing that he went through, and he doesn't want other people to go through that. So again, a positive reaction to your own traumas in life. And then finally, this is one of the things that really make us invest emotionally into the character, is that later on we see him empathize with that tiger I mentioned, who had the great trainer. I won't give away exactly what happens because I really recommend you pick up the book. But we see him find some common emotional ground with that tiger, with his enemy, because they had a shared common experience, and then he finds it in his heart to do something to benefit this enemy. So again, the idea is that he's not fighting the enemy because he hates the enemy. He doesn't feel just blind hatred towards these tigers because they're on the other side. He's fighting them as determinedly as he can because he's trying to protect the civilians. He's trying to protect what he holds dear, the values, the boundaries that he believes should be protected, like a good war hero should. And when the circumstances change in which he can actually protect those values by helping this tiger, that's not a problem for him at all, because again, he's not fighting out of hate, he's fighting out of love. It's a wonderful lesson. By the time this issue was over, I was really upset, actually. I wanted to read so much more, and I hope that the next issues come out somewhat frequently, because I couldn't believe how I got hooked on this story. Like I said, I thought this was just this silly premise, this bunny military agent. It just had no appeal to me whatsoever. I would never have told Tim Limm that, of course, because he's such a nice guy. But then when I read it, I got it. I was so impressed. I'm really invested in this character. I want to spend more time with him. So I say all that just to emphasize the fact that if you are like me, and if you were thinking, what, a bunny soldier? I don't know about it. If you're thinking that, give it a chance anyway, because it's not any of the things that you're thinking it might be that you might not be interested in. It's actually extremely effective and profound storytelling about a character and a scenario that will reach you on whatever level you allow it to. So I highly recommend Black Hops. Issue 1 is out now. I don't know what printing it's in, but eventually you'll be able to find a copy. Ask your local comic shop, go online. It's definitely worth it, and strap in for issue 2 to come out soon. And I will be back tomorrow with another video, but until then, keep enjoying and digging deeper into the hero stories you love. Thanks for watching.